My name is Frederick Odegaard. I'm a faculty member in the Management Science Area Group at the Ivy Business School, and delighted to host this session here on AI. And delighted to have Selim Teja join us here as one of our panel experts. We have another one, Mark Daly, but he has this thing called COVID, and unfortunately, he's going to try to bring him in via Zoom at some point. On your desks or on your tape, there's two cards. So I am an academic, I'm a professor, a teacher, so we're going to have a pop quiz. So if everybody can grab a red and a green card, we're going to do an activity together. And yes, you're graded on this activity as well. So without further ado, let me get started. And Selim has kindly offered to introduce himself, so I don't have to say my speech with him. So please, Selim, welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Salim Teja. Thank you very much for having me. I'm an HBA 96, and I'm a partner at Radical Ventures. We launched Radical Ventures in 2019. Today, we manage about $1 billion of capital across 3 funds with offices in Toronto, Palo Alto, and London, a team of 30, and have some great people connected to our fund, including folks like Jeff Hinton, Fei Li, Dominic Barton, Ed Clark, and a number of others. Since 2019, our team has met with just over 8,000 AI startups, and we have invested in 42 companies, just to kind of give you a sense of where our bar is. And about a quarter of our portfolio are investments in Canadian companies.
Thank you for that. All right, so to get started, let's have a little quiz. Is it AI or is it not AI? So I'm going to flash some images up here. You take your cards. If it is AI, you raise your green card. If it's not AI, you raise your red card. And I'm going to ask Selim to do as well, and then maybe give a few commentary works. All right, let's see. Let's have the first slide. Is it AI or is it not AI? Hopefully this technology works. There we go, thank you. Self-driving cars. Self-driving cars. Is it AI or not AI? All right, I think that was unanimous. It's AI, and we'll push on and see about that. Okay, let's take the next one. Is it AI? Is it not? Airfare dynamic pricing of airfare. All right, so maybe in this one I will ask if you can comment on why is it AI or what is the AI behind it?
Sure, I think in the back end there is a lot of data ingestion around what are passengers looking at, what are passengers purchasing, what are routes that are in flight, what are, I'd say, capacity around the different airlines. All of that goes into real time around pricing airfare and optimizing around certain business rules. And very often all of that happens through algorithms, and decisions are made by computers to price dynamically based on those conditions.
So it seems I have the technology errors. Next one here then. Scheduling of nurse shifts. Scheduling of nurse shifts. Is that AI or not AI? And I will just point out that these pictures have been generated by AI, and I don't know from which hospital, but so. I'm going to go back and see, why is this AI or why is it not?
Yes, we've actually invested in a Toronto company called Signal One that's a spin out of Unity Health. And lots of hospitals today are using data and AI to really optimize their workflow. Again, a hospital has so many different data systems. They understand the capacity of the hospital, what the patient inflow looks like, what the different levels of capacity are within different departments within a hospital. They can then forecast what they believe certain demands are going to be from a patient perspective, day of the week, time of day, and they then use that, a system uses that to optimize what is the work requirement from a workforce to staff for that day. Those decisions get made by a computer and ultimately feed a staffing engine that goes out and coordinates staffing.
Thank you. Let's take the next one here. Your thermostat. Is that AI? Is a thermostat an AI? Everybody's so AI, well, yeah. All right, I'm going to move on to another one just in time. Let's see here. Your streaming recommendations, your online movie streaming recommendations. And here I think we are getting unanimous and everybody is aware of the algorithms, and we heard it also in the plenary this morning. And finally, our beloved new chatbot, everybody's AI engine. It is, and let me again hear some words of why is it AI and maybe the difference of evolution.
Sure. I mean, raise your hands. Who in this room has played with ChatGPT? ChatGPT was, just launched just a little over a year ago now. It has 100 million users. It is a technology amongst many technologies which are enabling computers to learn language and to be able to communicate at a really sophisticated level. One of the manifestations of this technology is going to be through chatbots and how technology interacts with humans through a number of different disciplines.
I think I'm going to stop here. And so based on this activity, maybe there were some questions about is that AI, is that not AI? So my first question is going to be about how do you define AI? And if you can give maybe some other examples of what people don't realize is an AI application, either a product or a service that you've been engaged with.
Sure. So, at its most basic level, AI is the science of simulating human intelligence in machines. I think the goal has always been, can we teach computers how to learn? And by learning, can computers then recognize patterns and make decisions with a level of human judgment? And ultimately, I think the goal is, if we can connect the massive data sets we have within different disciplines, the business world, the science world, if we can connect that data to these learning computers, can they drive insights that have traditionally been outside of human understanding? And that is the power and the potential of AI at its most basic level. Now, researchers have been really working on the promise of AI since the 1960s. And for many decades, the field really wasn't successful. And that was because of the approaches that were being taken. The first generation of AI approaches were really focused on trying to program intelligence into computers. So essentially, taking a particular action, building a decision tree, and making a computer essentially follow the rules, the decision tree, to ultimately make a decision. These were called expert systems. And ultimately, these types of systems just couldn't scale because we couldn't necessarily, as humans, predict every single decision tree that we needed around this type of intelligence. And for many, many decades, the field of artificial intelligence was really stagnated. Up until the early 2000s, when a new approach was taken. And that was by a really interesting professor named Jeff Hinton here at the University of Toronto in Toronto, who took a very different approach to artificial intelligence. His approach was, rather than trying to program intelligence into computers, can we actually teach computers how to learn? He and his colleagues studied the way the human brain worked, tried to take those models and connect it to the way we could program computers to learn. And because we had back then access to incredible data sets and incredible compute power at a cost-effective basis, he was able, and his colleagues were able to unlock a field called deep learning. And deep learning was presented to the world in 2012. And now today, all of the excitement and the innovation that you see in the field of AI really has its roots in the field of deep learning. And Toronto and all of the great people that drove all of this research have a pretty big role in how the field is advanced. And because of that, Canada is regarded as a top 5 player in the world globally around AI innovation. And we have an incredible ecosystem here that we are developing and building in order to maintain that position. Jeff Hinton won the Turing Award in 2018 for this contribution. The Turing Award is like the Nobel Prize for computer science. And today, many of the people that are leading AI at organizations like Facebook, Apple, OpenAI, Microsoft, even Tesla, many of them have their roots back to Toronto. Many of them are Canadians. And so we have this incredible network around the world who are pioneering this field and who are helping us rethink how, as a country, should be thinking about building an economic development strategy around this incredible technology and continue to make Canada an important player in the world around this field.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to move over here. It's blocked a little bit there. So with that, and with the big promise that AI has had, I mean, maybe even for decades, or at least the last decade, there still seems to be that the ROI hasn't been produced. And there was one of the big consulting firms that came out with a report in 2019 that when they interviewed leaders and stuff, they came to the conclusion that 7 out of 10 companies reported minimal or no ROI on the AI. So what is the value proposition of AI, and how do you make sure that you're one of the 3 that generate a positive ROI?
Yeah, I'd say that there are 2 different things that are happening in the AI world right now. Number one is we are still very early in inventing this technology and discovering this technology. In 2012, through Jeff's work, we were really able to teach computers how to see, and the field of computer vision just took off. In 2018, we were able, through large language models, we were able to teach computers how to understand language and communicate, and that has kicked off another really interesting innovation area. In 2021, with the launch of ChatGPT and other similar types of technologies that started to incorporate images and video, we started to teach computers how to create, and this was what kicked off the field of generative AI. And so I think that there is one thing that is happening right now is that it's not like AI has arrived. I think that the research community is still innovating and discovering how this technology is going to be meaningful to us, and we're going to continue to see different types of modalities and different types of value propositions and capabilities that computers are going to be able to generate over the next decade as this technology category matures. And so on the first hand, I think that research stage is continuing. It is occurring at an exponential pace. So, every year, the capability of these technologies and the different types of modalities is only going to continue to grow. But what that has now done, it has kicked off an era of experimentation in business right now, where businesses are starting to play with these technologies to really identify use cases that would be relevant for their businesses. They're trying to identify what the ROI is of these use cases in order to justify scaling these types of solutions. And then they're thinking forward about, if they were to scale, what impact do these technologies have on their digital infrastructure, on their workforce, and the products and services that they're innovating around in order to get them to their customers. And so I would argue that we've seen some early and mixed responses to ROI, because I think that we're in this experimentation phase, and I think that's healthy, that's important. And I think it's very, very important for all companies to start to play with this technology, to start to use it as a tool, and start to think about creatively, how do you integrate it and incorporate it into your business, either in the back office from a productivity perspective, or in your interactions with customers and the products and services that you're delivering. And I do believe that the ROI will continue to get better, and in certain fields it has exploded. So I'll give you a couple of examples. In the pharmaceutical industry, pharma is now moving to an entire digital infrastructure to develop new drugs and to drive experimentation around new therapies. And they are all in on AI. I think what they have found is as this science continues to unlock different types of compounds and materials that they can then simulate digitally to understand what the impact is going to be through a clinical process, it has allowed them to build a greater pipeline and better screen opportunities before they drive into the clinic. And what we are seeing today in real time is the reinvention of the pharma industry and the biotech industry to be purely digital. And so that's an example of one sector that is seeing ROI and is investing in ROI. I'll give you another example. We've just recently invested in a Toronto-based company called Promise Robotics. Promise is using AI and robotics to re-envision the way we build homes. As you all know, we have an affordable housing crisis right now. We need to think about, how do we build homes cheaper, faster, and better? And how do we drive innovation into the construction sector? Well, what if we could actually build homes in factories cheaper, faster, and better? Could we build homes in days and assemble them in weeks rather than the months and years that it takes through our traditional approaches to home building. Modern robotics and AI now allow us to build what we call microfactories to work with developers to set up this kind of infrastructure. You've all seen what a Tesla factory probably looks like, and all of these robotic arms building cars. Why couldn't we repurpose that technology to build homes? And that's the promise of what they're doing. The ROI is showing that there's a 30 to 40% savings by driving automation into this sector and scaling it. And we have the opportunity to really solve a really critical challenge that many societies around the world are facing. The technology exists. It's a Canadian innovation, and it's a great example of the potential of combining AI and robotics to unlock value in different ways.
Okay, thank you. And I think our technology is now working, so I think if Professor Daly, are you live with us?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Then maybe I'll let you introduce yourself, and maybe you can also then elaborate on your thoughts on the lack of ROI or the potential for ROI of AI, and maybe some applications that you have seen.
Thank you so much. And my apologies, I'm not there in person with you. I luckily caught COVID and am isolating myself, but Salim, it's good to see you. It's been a while. I think Salim nailed the questions you asked. There's just sort of two additional pieces of context that I'd add. So the first is in the early days of deep learning and neural networks. So we're going back to like the 1980s and 1990s here. There was a period of time where you couldn't submit a neural nets paper to an AI or machine learning conference because everybody knew that neural nets didn't work. And Canada invested in that research anyways. And NSERC in particular supported Jeff Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, Rich Sutton, some of the people who became the founders of this field. So that investment in thinking like a venture capitalist, that's a really high risk endeavor, but it could be potentially high reward. And now Canada is reaping the reward of having a great ecosystem of talent around deep learning because of those early investments. So I think that sort of shows the benefit of public-private partnership. On the AI adoption front, there's a prof at Wharton, Ethan Mollick, who has been writing on this very intelligently. I recommend all of his stuff. And he talks about the jagged frontier of AI. And there are things that we don't expect our computer to be good at that all of a sudden is. And vice versa. There are things we think it should be good at and it isn't. And so, like I'm thinking about Microsoft Excel, if I tell it to add 2 columns, I expect the answer is going to be right. But I don't expect Excel to have an opinion on my spreadsheet. GPT-4 might actually add the columns wrong, but it will have an opinion on my spreadsheet. So we really have to experiment to engage with these technologies. That's true for every corporation, for every individual.
Thank you very much. I think I'm just going to stop my questioning and open it up to the audience. And I don't know if we have more mics or if I should walk around with the mic. Do we have more mics? Or this one? Questions?
Thank you. Lucy Lee from Microsoft. I would like to ask you from the ventures perspective, what are the key criteria you're looking for since AI is so early stage? The ROI is yet to be proven. You mentioned that you invested in healthcare, for instance. So are there certain industries that you're looking at kind of in terms of coverage, or do you think that there are certain types of AI applications that from as a venture capitalist that you think will be more promising?
Yeah, so as an investor, we focus our investments in 2 different categories. The first category is what we would describe as AI infrastructure. We believe that there is going to be a modernization of our entire compute infrastructure to really enable enterprises to adopt AI. So there is innovation happening at the compute level, at the data level, at the foundation model level, tooling. All of this is needed in order to unlock the services that businesses are going to need to innovate with AI. And so about half of our portfolio are investing in these very technical infrastructure-oriented types of companies that we believe are going to drive incredible value. The other bucket is more applied AI. So we look at sectors like healthcare, like financial services, like commerce, like education, like healthcare, like climate is another big one, where we believe that there are opportunities to use machine learning at the core of a product innovation and really create a new category or capability that couldn't exist before the arrival of machine learning. And so those types of category leaders or category creators is what we look for as we look at the applied AI space. It's very important for us as an investor to see really three things when we look at companies. The first is, what is the technical innovation? What is the caliber of the team? What is the technology that they're developing? And is there a technical moat that this company can protect as it starts to scale? And that's one area that's really important for us. The second is around, what is the problem that they're solving? What is the business problem? What are the challenges that businesses have? How is this going to be a priority for them? Will the ROI make sense? And if it does work, do we believe that this can, with the business model that's being developed, can this company be not a high growth company, but a hyper growth company? And so we really try and understand what that go-to-market model looks like and what does the customer need. It's very easy for investors and technologists to get excited about the technology, but to forget about what is the problem that you're solving. And so for us, that's very, very important in order to build a real business and not to just get enamored with the technology. And then finally, we like to look at what is happening in the external environment that might lend either headwinds or tailwinds to this opportunity that we are developing. That might be certain industry dynamics that are going to either accelerate or make adoption challenging. It might be a regulatory environment that makes adoption complex. It might be a demographic environment where we're seeing massive adoption given the changing nature of the structure of a particular industry. And very often what we find is that these hyper-scaling companies, beyond their innovation and their market opportunity alone, they typically get pushed by massive tailwinds that ultimately create category winners. And so we think very deeply about how do all of the opportunities that we look at fit those three criteria. And above and beyond all of those, it starts with the founders and the founding team and their ability to navigate all of those things, their ability to attract talent around them, and their ability to mature with the company as it's going through its various growth phases.
Before I ask Mark to add some words to that, maybe I can just expand on that question and see, were there any learning lessons from the first .com era of investments and where that's helping you now choose or evaluate which ventures are going to be successful?
Yeah, I think as investors, we're very thoughtful about, I think we're being more thoughtful and responsible about building real businesses and not just investing for investing's sake to get excited about a technology, but can we build real businesses and ultimately can we get a return for our investors and can we create massive value? There is no doubt that it feels like in AI today, and I'm right at the heart of this industry, it feels it's very bubblish. It feels like every company is saying that they're AI, and that may not necessarily be true. There is a lot of capital coming into this market that's not very sophisticated, that doesn't understand technology moats, that doesn't understand industry dynamics, doesn't understand the changing regulatory environment. There are going to be investors that get burnt, and that's just a fact of being in this sort of this business cycle that we're in. But unlike a lot of the other sectors that we've seen come and go, like crypto and even to some degree the metaverse, I fundamentally believe that this is a transformational technology. There is real ROI and business problems that we can solve using this technology, and real industries that we can reinvent. And so I think that the substance that we have in this sector is going to drive the innovation category over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Mark, do you have something to add about, especially from the early research where you see the innovation and what gets funded and so on?
Yeah, so I'm not a VC. I'm the dangerous technologist that Salim worried about. I'm a computer scientist, so of course I get excited about the technology. But my role at Western now, I'm kind of like an internal VC. Fortunately, everyone is excited about AI. but we have to decide how we're going to prioritize and what we're going to do in terms of institutional transformation. And so my approach is really a portfolio theoretic one. This is all high risk to some extent. I agree with Salim entirely. This is a transformative technology. Of course, I'm talking my own book, so I'm going to say that. But this is really a transformative, empowering technology that's going to change a lot of our world. And I think in the higher ed space in particular, Bill Gates 6 months ago now said within 18 months, GPT-4 is going to be a better tutor than any human tutor. He may have been a little bit ambitious, but I don't think he's wrong. If my students have questions at 2 o'clock in the morning, Chat GPT is there for them and it's patient. I'm probably not going to be woken up at 2 o'clock. So there's use cases all over, sort of from how we change education through to are there better ways of doing snow removal with AI? And the nice thing about a university environment is we're kind of like a little microcosm with all of those different opportunities to experiment.
Thank you. Other questions? Let's maybe go here first and then we'll take my boss afterwards.
Yeah, I'd like to ask maybe a thought or a recommendation, maybe from businesses that were, a little more, say, a traditional equipment manufacturer and are now coming out with AI to sort of enhance workflows or, say, patient care or things like that along with the equipment. There's the development of the AI, and then there's how do you bring it to market? How do you drive adoption? In those more traditional, say, equipment markets, you sell in a very certain way. And it's very different when you're trying to bring AI or a solution to a customer. So my ask for the recommendation is, any thoughts on how do you drive that adoption? Is it more a proof of concept? You need to kind of put your money where your mouth is first, be able to show that outcome as you're talking about. Is it subscription-based? Is it an outright purchase? Those types of things, I think, are a lot of questions that people in industry are trying to think about as well.
Yeah, I really do think that the next 5-10 years is really going to be about business experimentation with this technology and understanding use cases and ROI and doing that cost effectively within your budgets. And so I think that's really, really important. A lot of Canadian businesses out there are not going to be inventing AI. That's a role for the startups and the technologies. I think as business leaders, your role is to really figure out how do you adopt this technology and then build your own innovation around process, around product and customer service and engagement in order to drive efficiency and profitability around areas that perhaps you couldn't do before. And so I think this next decade is really going to be around collaborative innovation. You're going to have your network of partners. You're going to problem solve together. You're going to have to really reinvent and train your workforce to be creative problem solvers and critical thinkers, and really leveraging these new technologies as tools to start a conversation about what does this mean for your business and how does it affect your day-to-day work. And I think that's the journey that we're starting now. I think where companies get in trouble is when they feel like they have to invent AI themselves. They have to hire all of these incredibly expensive data scientists and researchers and build new, state-of-the-art algorithms and spend tons of money on data centers and compute. That's not necessarily how this technology is going to touch, everyday mainstream businesses. And so I think it really is important to understand what is your core competency, where can you rely on partners to really enable you, and then how do you think about experimentation in order to get to that next level.
Thank you. I think we had a question over here.
You answered actually part of my question with your comment. I think about some of the biggest opportunities around AI are with private data that's encompassed within a company today. And, but it involves collaboration across companies. When you're thinking about some of the big challenges, especially around supply chain, even when you think about how we're going to manage scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 information. And what's the process to get that collaboration going? Because right now I think everybody's sort of very internally focused. What do I need to do with my own business processes? So that's question one. Question two really is, if you don't have the expertise within your organization, and it's, you've got to be a relatively significant size organization if you're going to make the investment to build a center of excellence. What's the process you go through to define the use cases that are the most valuable for you? If you don't know enough about AI, then how do you find the use cases that are the right use cases for your organization?
Should we let Mark start with that? Mark, do you want to take those two questions first?
Sure, I'll do my best. So to your first question, Sharon, like everything else in life, you have to incentivize companies to take risks. If I share my corporate data with you, that's a risk to me. But if there's a strong enough incentive, I may be willing to take on that risk. And I think part of the hesitance right now to do that is also the developing regulatory environment. We saw last week the executive order from the Biden administration, a lot of the agreements and conversation that were coming out of the Bletchley dialogues in the UK. And so there's a moment of real regulatory uncertainty. It is clear that a number of world governments want to be more heavy-handed than they have been in the past. And so there's also risk in moving too fast to do too much. On use cases, I think nobody knows. And I think anyone who will walk in and tell you, here are the 5 use cases for AI in your organization, is probably someone you should run away from really fast. Sorry, consultants. I think experimentation is required because this technology is so different and the mode of interaction is so different than what we're accustomed to. Chaining that to the previous speaker's question, the perfect example here is OpenAI. They had GPT-3 for months, and they had an API, and you could use it, and it was kind of cool, and only people who were in the AI bubble really knew about it. But then they created a beautiful productized demo in ChatGPT and launched that a year ago, and that changed the dialogue. And so, creating something like that internally, you're not going to create an internal ChatGPT, but just giving easy access with a simple user interface to your organization and giving them permission to experiment with it, you are going to find those use cases.
Yeah, I think on the data side, one of the interesting models that I'm seeing now is in industry by industry, there are some very interesting what's called federated data platforms that are emerging. We've just recently seen one in the financial services space where fraud is becoming such a massive issue. And so as banks are trying to figure out things like KYC and AML, they're now becoming much more willing to perhaps anonymize certain data sets, dedicate it to a federated platform where everyone in the industry is willing to put their data in an anonymous fashion. They build very sophisticated algorithms to train for fraud and money laundering. And then they build a solution that all of the industry players can adopt. And I think that's a really interesting way. I think there has to be value that an industry sees and a real use case that different industry players can feel is compelling enough to warrant going through a process of anonymizing their data and contributing that to a federated platform. I think we're going to see more and more of those types of use cases emerge, and I believe they're going to happen industry by industry. On the use cases, I think, as I said, I think we're in experimentation mode right now. When I see companies playing around with the technologies today, they're doing it in one of 2 areas. Number one, they're doing it in their back office and really looking at all of their internal processes and the tools that they currently use, and how does AI make those interactions and collaboration and intelligence that they can derive from these new tools more efficient and effective. I think in that world, a lot of the software partners that you're already working with are going to be bringing their own AI solutions to market. We have an investment in a company here in Toronto called Cohere, which is in the large language model space. They are the language engine, the AI language engine for SAP, for Oracle, and many other enterprise software companies. They're working with McKinsey to take this technology out. So I think that as you look at the tools and technologies you already have and you already are using, those players are going to be injecting AI into those applications. And I think you have an opportunity to collaborate with those partners to figure out what are these capabilities that are emerging, and how do you start to build your own internal use cases to play with that, experiment with that on the back office side. And there's a lot of experimentation happening there. The other side is more customer facing. So as you think about what your product and service is and how perhaps you can use your own data to innovate, I think there's starting to be some innovation happening there. And that really depends around the kind of data that you have, the way that you think about the role that AI can play to help you drive a new type of product category or a new type of customer engagement. And I think the question there just starts with, do we have the right technical infrastructure to be able to access this data and play with these new models? And then is our team aware, and do they have the skills to really help us think about business transformation that's more customer facing? And so I think there we're starting to see more conversations about technical infrastructure, technical modernization, and continuing to level up our technical teams and our business teams in order to problem solve. We've started to see a lot of companies now put together what they're calling internal idea labs or thought labs, where they're building multidisciplinary teams around their company, involving people from sales and marketing and technology and HR and back office to pick a particular use case, define it, present it back to the company, and really start a dialogue around how does this opportunity impact the company and does it warrant investment? And we're starting to see some really interesting conversations emerge from that. And so I would encourage companies to think about how do you start that type of multidisciplinary conversation around this technology and start to learn what use cases make sense, and then determine how do you prioritize the ROI around it.
Well, thank you to you both, and thanks for everybody for attending this session. So we're unfortunately running a little bit short on time, and I'm sure we could continue this discussion for hours. So I'm just going to wrap up with one final question for you, and if we can keep it brief. So in some sense, maybe AI is going really, really fast, and in another sense, maybe it's going way, way too slow. So if you could give a prediction of how long will it take until a significant proportion of what all these people are daily doing now is automated by AI?
Yeah, I think we're going to see automation at scale and massive, I would say, transformation of our workforce globally. I think that time frame is 15 years. I think I'm going to come at that number from two perspectives. I'm going to come at it from, we're in an experimentation and creation mode right now. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to start to see rapid adoption of this technology by business. I think we're going to have to navigate a regulatory environment that emerges that is going to create either headwinds or tailwinds. While with businesses is doing that, the technology is becoming incredibly more powerful. And I think there is a reality in the next 15 years that there will be a category of jobs that will just be more efficiently done by computers. But there will also be a new category of jobs that are created in order to grow a workforce as well. And so I think we need to start to think about what does that workforce transition look like, and ultimately, how do we as business leaders navigate that?
Thank you. Mark?
One other point. If you think back to when the web browser launched, which was just over 20 years ago, and we've been going through a process of digital transformation of our business over the last 20 years or so, the sense is that AI transformation of business is not going to take nearly as long as that, because we already have the infrastructure in place. We already have a digital economy. It's got to be less than 20 years. And so, 15 years seems to make sense.
Mark, do you want a final comment on, will I last 15 years?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with an analogy. So, go back to the ancient Greeks, and the best mode of transportation was horse-drawn vehicle. Fast forward to 1750, and the best mode of transportation is slightly better horse-drawn vehicle. And then you go forward, so that's 2,000 years. Then you go forward just 200 years, and we've got human beings walking around on the moon. So you're asking me to look 15 years ahead against that exponential growth curve of technology. And it's kind of like asking, the ancient Greek philosopher, what's the first moon landing going to look like? And the best answer I have is, I don't know. And I think the rate of acceleration is so fast right now. Even people who have been in AI for our whole careers did not think we'd be where we are right now. We knew it was inevitable, but the rate of progress is staggeringly fast. And so I'm going to be even more optimistic than Salim. I think within a decade, we're going to see not replacement of our jobs, but all the parts of my job that are intellectual labor and boring, I'm going to outsource those to a machine so I can focus on what I actually love about my job.
Can I make one other ask of the audience, Fred? I think we are all a little excited about AI and what's about to happen. Some of us are a little nervous and anxious about what's going to happen. I would encourage you as business leaders to really think thoughtfully about experimenting with this technology and thinking about how it transforms your workforce, your business value proposition, and the role of business in society as we think about the impact of this technology. But I'd also ask you, as you're thinking about partners and who to work with, to really give Canadian innovators a chance. We have some incredible world-class companies that are pioneering this field that unfortunately don't get the attention of a Microsoft or a Google or an Amazon, but are incredible leaders in this space. And I think we owe it to them, given all of this investment that we've made in this sector, to really help them scale and help them grow. And this is our chance to really build a Canadian industry around this technology. I'll give you one quick example. There's a technology called large language models. We've all used ChatGPT. We know Google's got theirs. There's probably only 5 companies in the world that have the resources and the expertise to develop this kind of capability. And one of those companies is a company called Cohere, which is a Canadian company that's raised over $600 million, that is well regarded as one of 5 companies in the world that is going to invent this technology. They have 400 people. It's an incredible Canadian success story that gets so much attention globally, but a lot of Canadians don't even know that it exists in our backyard. I think we really have to, give these entrepreneurs a chance. This is an industry that we pioneered, and it's our opportunity to create a really strong industry and path for Canada here around this capability.
Thank you very much. And this concludes this session, so please help me thank Selim and Mark for giving their insights on this topic and for taking your time out of your busy schedule, and good luck with these adventures. So.